Today, we're diving straight into something that is literally keeping people up at night because we're unraveling one of the most profound mysteries of modern workplace anxiety. I mean, if you've been paying any attention to the news lately, you've definitely seen the endless headlines about corporate restructuring, efficiency gains, and AI just totally transforming the workforce. It's creating this massive, pervasive sense of dread for a lot of professionals right now. But here is the real mystery we're looking at today. Is the actual loss of a job the hardest part? Or is there something even more damaging happening in the background before the axe even falls? So I want you to ask yourself right now, what takes a heavier toll? Actually losing your job or just waiting to lose it? Our immediate instinct is to say that losing the job is the ultimate peak of stress, right? I mean, that is the disaster scenario. But the science tells a completely different and honestly deeply counterintuitive story. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating biological paradox at the heart of how our brains process threats in the modern workplace. Because to really understand this, we have to flip everything we assume about career stress entirely upside down. All right, section 1, the paradox of job limbo. Think about it like this. When actual job loss happens, the shock is acute. It's a definitively bad outcome. But structurally, it is a known outcome. The probability of the threat instantly resolves to 100%. And because that uncertainty is gone, your brain can actually turn off its incredibly expensive threat scanning system. It can finally transition its energy into goal-directed recovery, things like updating a resume or retraining for a new role. Job limbo, on the other hand, is an unresolved state of anticipation. It's an open loop in your mind. Because the threat is only a possibility, your brain just stays on high alert, continuously draining your physical and mental energy. When researchers pooled together a massive amount of job security research, the math they found was honestly staggering. For folks experiencing actual objective unemployment, the risk of developing depressive symptoms increases by 19%. But for those dealing with chronic job insecurity, literally just the anticipation of losing their job, that risk jumps to 29%. Mathematically speaking, anticipating the loss triggers a significantly higher risk of depression than actually being unemployed. And when you aggregate the data from multiple cohort studies, this elevated risk is remarkably consistent across the board. It proves this isn't just a fleeting feeling or an isolated emotional response. This is a deeply documented biological reaction to an unresolved threat, and it compounds over time. While the shock of unemployment usually stabilizes after a few months as people adapt to their new reality, job insecurity, it just keeps escalating. Section 2, your brain on uncertainty. So why does waiting for bad news feel so biologically awful? Well, let's look under the hood for a second. Meet your HPA axis. In plain, everyday language, you can think of this as your brain's internal hormone alarm system. When you face uncertainty, your brain is fundamentally designed to flood your body with stress chemicals like cortisol to prepare you for danger. Now, in short bursts, this is actually great. If there's a predator hiding in the bushes, you want that alarm ringing loudly. But when the threat is structural, like waiting 3 months to see if your department is going to be downsized, that alarm system never actually shuts off. It forces your brain into a continuous, wildly expensive threat scanning loop. Which brings us to our next key concept. Allostatic load. Basically, this is the physical wear and tear on your body from running that internal alarm system for way too long. This continuous dumping of stress hormones eventually just drains your body's energy. It literally steals the biological resources your body desperately needs for repair, for healing, and for growth. Your brain is burning all of its fuel trying to predict a totally unpredictable future, which leaves you completely exhausted in the present. Section 3, the hidden benefit of stress. Okay. Here is where we hit a massive midpoint twist in all of this, and it all comes down to this number, 50%. Because as terrible as allostatic load feels, we actually need to completely reframe how we view these intense feelings of stress and anxiety. There was this fascinating lab study where researchers hooked participants up to biosensors and told them they might receive a mild electric shock. One group was told they had a 100% certainty of getting shocked, a guaranteed bad outcome. The other group was told they had a 50% chance, a flip of a coin. The results? The people facing that 50% chance of pain showed significantly higher physiological stress, more sweat, more pupil dilation, than the people who knew for a fact they were getting shocked. Not knowing is biologically harder on us than knowing the worst. But here's the thing you have to realize. Those stress spikes aren't a flaw in your biology. They're actually a learning signal. Evolution built this feature, a sort of smoke detector principle. And it's designed to make us highly accurate at spotting potential threats before they even happen.
In fact, that same lab study found that the people whose stress spiked the absolute most during the uncertainty phase were actually better at judging their environment and spotting the real threats. So your anxiety isn't a weakness. It's just an evolutionary tool that's trying to keep you safe when it only has incomplete information.
Section 4. What the data actually says. Now that we understand the biology at play, let's zoom out to the macro data to separate all those sensationalized news headlines from reality. First off, let's validate what so many people are feeling right now, because it actually has a name: the fear of becoming obsolete, or FOBO. This is that acute, nagging fear that your role is going to become irrelevant due to new technology like AI. It is a very real, technologically anchored dread. But we really need to reject this breathless hype about instant mass job loss happening tomorrow. The macro data just doesn't support a sudden apocalypse. It shows a gradual shift. AI is much more like a slowly rising tide than a sudden crashing wave. You have time to prepare. And to prove that we are focused on reality here and not just fear-mongering, let's talk about the honest limitations of the data. First, while the overall trend is very clear, the link between job insecurity and depression risk is actually inconsistent across some individual studies. Second, this risk is notably weaker in the United States compared to Europe. That's largely because the US has a more flexible job market where reemployment can happen a lot faster, which sort of dampens that feeling of chronic dread. And finally, it's absolutely crucial to note that this data remains entirely untested in developing countries, so we can't definitively apply these findings globally just yet. Section 5. How to take back control. So, knowing all this, knowing that our brains are naturally wired to spin out when we're in job limbo, what do we actually do about it? Let's pivot to how we can manually override your brain's exhausting uncertainty loop. First, we have to recognize our own intolerance of uncertainty, or IU. This is our natural human tendency to react negatively to ambiguous situations and try to force control through overplanning or catastrophic overthinking. And while fighting uncertainty is totally natural, the science shows it actually accelerates our exhaustion. We literally can't think our way out of an unpredictable labor market. Instead, we need actionable tools to regain a true sense of biological stability. So here are 4 specific, evidence-backed steps you can take today. Step 1, separate the controllable from the uncontrollable. You can't control a corporate restructuring, but you can control learning a new skill. Step 2, build small daily routines. Having simple, predictable daily anchors acts as an incredibly powerful buffer against occupational chaos. Step 3, exercise. Moving your body physically grounds your brain in the present moment and actually helps burn off that excess cortisol. And step 4, stay connected to people. Do not make this a solo quest. Networking and leaning on your colleagues shuts off that continuous threat scanning alarm by reminding your brain that you are part of a supportive pack. Uncertainty is completely exhausting, but please remember, your response to it is just a perfectly healthy brain trying to do its job. It's a biological feature, not a failure. We just have to stop fighting the uncertainty and start managing the biology of it. And on that note, if you or someone you know is feeling genuinely overwhelmed by workplace anxiety, please do reach out to a local mental health professional or a supportive helpline in your area.